Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing? This is Ty, hanging out here in Los Angeles. I'm about to packing up right now. Me and Nomik is going to Puerto Rico today for some days to report on what's going on, all the issues that's still permeating throughout that state. You know, a lot of people still don't have food, still don't have electricity. So we're going to be out there from tomorrow to about 5 days out there, just looking at the devastation, reporting on the devastation in Puerto Rico. I just want to do a quick live right now to talk about some news I just heard with St. Louis. Now, as you all know, that me and Jordan was arrested on October 3rd in St. Louis during a protest there. The residents of St. Louis protest. They blocked the freeway off, then went on an on-ramp to the street and blocked the street off. At that point, police came in riot gear, formed what they call a kettle. And what a kettle is they box the protesters in. So they would have, I would say, about 50 to 60 police officers on either side of the protesters, boxing them in, not allowing them to get out, and then moving closer, they're moving closer to then arrest everyone without anyone being able to disperse. So some news came today. This is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and the title was Law and Order. Federal judge restricts St. Louis police conduct during protests. And this all has to do with a kettle that happened prior to when me and Jordan was arrested. This happened September 17th. Me and Jordan was arrested October 3rd. This happened September 17th. St. Louis police officers who took part in the kettling and mass arrests of people on Washington Avenue and Tucker Boulevard in St. Louis remains in the area after the arrest on Sunday, September 17, 2017. A group of police officers chanted, "Whose streets are streets?" twice as those who were arrested were being loaded into the vans and taken to jail. So that's a normal chant that the protesters they normally say, "Whose streets are streets? Whose streets are streets?" So in return, seemed like out of some type of punishment, as the police were arresting and loading the protesters into the van on September 17th, the police officers was yelling, "Whose streets are streets? Whose streets are streets?" Obviously to antagonize. There have been numerous complaints of misconduct and abuse by the police officers as they took people into custody. So that's talking about September 17th. So this case, which is a lawsuit that the ACLU, excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, the ACLU filed a lawsuit charging the police with misconduct and over-policing. So this came down today, and this all happened today, I'm assuming earlier this morning. But a federal judge on Wednesday issued wide range of restrictions on the ability of the St. Louis police to declare unlawful and use chemical agents against protesters. So a lot of times what happens is when we go, so another time while we're in St. Louis, this happened, the officer, what they're supposed to do is they'll come out and they'll read you these laws and they'll say, this is an unlawful protest. You need to get out the street. It's kind of intimidating tactic to push people off the street knowing they're going to get arrested. So what this article is actually saying that it's up to their own discretion, not the law, to determine what's lawful or unlawful. So they can see someone just walking on the street, protesters, and say this is an unlawful assembly and arrest you. So this is what this judge is addressing. U.S. District Judge Catherine Perry order says that police can't declare an unlawful assembly and enforce it against those who engage in expressive activities, unless the persons are acting in concert to pose an immediate threat to use of force or violence, or to violate a criminal law with force or violence. Police cannot used that unlawful assembly order or threatened to use chemical agents to punish protesters for exercising their rights, she wrote. Perry barred the use of pepper spray, mace, and other chemical agents against expressive nonviolent activity without probable cause to make an arrest without proving clear and unambiguous warning. So she's saying that they can't do any of this spray, use mace without making sure that they warn the protester and that it's clear and unambiguous, that they need to know, which they do not do. I had firsthand experience, especially when I was arrested. They didn't even tell us to disperse. They blocked us in and they arrested us. Police cannot give dispersal orders without giving people specifics about what area they must leave, what chemicals will be used, time enough to leave, and allow a way to leave that area, she wrote, which is a great acknowledgement in her statement, because even I think some of the protesters let us know initially when they first did a kettle on them that they said you need to disperse, this is unlawful, and I guess they settled out enough, but there was nowhere for them to disperse. They had them boxed in, and when they would get closer to the police officer to try to get out, they would be hit with the shields, and so it was no way for them to get out. So it was almost kind of, they were just saying that because they knew it had to be said. But still, they were boxing them in and not making a way out. So I think that was a great point to make, that it needs to be a way for them to disperse. Not just saying it for saying's sake or for law's sake, but actually giving them the opportunity to disperse. She also immediately ordered both sides to mediation, something that Tony Roth, a legal director of the ACLU of Missouri, called unusual at this stage in the case. Roth, I think it's Rothert, said that the ACLU was open to working something out with city officials. Asked for comment, let's see, the Mario, here we go. In a 49-page memorandum accompanying the order, Perry said that based on the evidence presented so far, the ACLU was likely to succeed in its underlying lawsuit over police practices. She faulted police use of mace against nonviolent protesters and those recording police activity, and said that police had improperly declared an unlawful assembly on some occasions and then gave protesters and others unreasonable and vague dispersal orders, which is completely true. I can attest to that. She said that the controversial police kettling, this is what I was just referring to, on September 17th at the intersection of Washington Avenue and Tucker Boulevard cannot meet constitutional standards. It was conducted without evidence of force or violence to officers or property in this mixed commercial and resident area. The scene was calm, she wrote, based on witnesses and video. No one reported violence for hours before the kettle. Some protesters were voicing their displeasure with police, but others in the intersection were bystanders. And as you know, I think in that retired Marine was, if I'm not, Air Force officer was arrested during this. It says witnesses at the hearing last month included an Air Force officer, his wife, and others said they were not a part of the protest at all. They were caught up in the middle, and because the police officers were not allowing people to disperse and they were just locking everyone in, this Air Force officer and his wife was arrested, and also people that were just shopping in the mall. So that lets you know that the intention wasn't to let people get away. The intention was just to say these words because of legalities. So just to read further, Rother said that the kettling carries too high a chance for error, and under Perry's order, what happened on September 17th would not be allowed to happen again. So I think that's a great advance. I think it's a great thing that happened, that won't be able to happen again. I think that's a huge part of their scare tactics, the police there, because once they kettle you in, I mean, outside of having an aerial view, whether it's a helicopter or someone having a drone, they can do whatever they want to do. Mind you, when we got arrested, they arrested the legal observers and the reporters first. They took my camera away first. And after that, they can do whatever they want. And if they have everything blocked off, you got imagine 60 to 100 on each side of the, because they have to cover the entire street and the intersection, depending on how wide the protesters are. So mind you, if you have 200 protesters, that can actually take up maybe a block on the street. So you think about police having to box in an entire block equally, right? To then come in and close people in. What that does is that so imagine if you don't have an area view, no one can see. If you have 100 police officers on either side, on four sides, no one can even see in. So they can be there beating. If you look at some of the video footage, like to really see what the police officers are doing, it's an area view you have to look from. The eye level view, you can see some things because some of the reporters are inside the kettle, and thankfully, places like YouTube and Facebook has a way to live stream, so things won't be taken off or erased by the police, because they do that also. So you really have been boxed in like that. Observers really couldn't see exactly what the police are doing. You wouldn't be able to get that on tape because they, in addition to shielding, blocking off those areas, they shield themselves from any scrutiny. So I just wanted to give y'all an update. It seems like this is still ongoing, and we all know that this has to do with the acquittal of the officer Jason Stokely, who fatally shot Anthony Lamar Smith in 2011. Jason Stokely was recorded chasing Anthony Lamar Smith, saying, "I'm going to kill this motherfucker, you watch it," and ended up killing him, and went back and forth from his patrol car to Anthony Lamar Smith's car two or three times, and then they found a gun in Anthony Lamar Smith's car, which only had the police officer Jason Stokely's DNA on it. What you can go ahead and infer from that. I know what I have. So to me, it seemed like protesters say police beat and pepper sprayed them without warning and without provocation. That completely happened. That I seen the videos, because mind you, since the acquittal, they've been protesting. So they have been protesting up until the point I got there. I got there right around the 30-day mark. At least a couple days. Me and Jordan got there maybe 1 or 2 days before the 30-day mark. So they have been protesting every day for a month straight, and they've been dealing with going to jail, being pepper sprayed. I think the day we got there, the day prior to us getting there initially in St. Louis, Reverend, one of the reverends, Jesus, his name, damn, I can't remember his name now. But he had just got beaten. They had a videotape. I actually made a video of it where he was pepper sprayed and hit by the police officers also. So that's a common practice for them. They do that and to intimidate. And it I don't know, they have this vendetta against protesters for some reason. They don't want to allow them. I think at some point after they when they did that arrest and said that these whose streets are streets, mocking the protesters, whose streets are streets, whose streets are streets, the police was doing that. They had they had a press conference and said that that protesters will not block the freeway again at all. They said that will not happen, and it happened. And then once it happened when we were covering it. That's when they blocked the freeway, and they got mad and they did the kettle again. Fortunately, at that moment, they arrested us and the illegal observers, but they did hit one person and stand one person down. But I think it was mild, and everyone said that when we was in jail, it was like, this was mild treatment. This was like valet treatment versus how they normally treat us. Like, we were treated good. And if I tell you, like, they fucked up my wrist with those handcuffs, I didn't feel like I was treated good. But I mean, and that lets you know, like, you think about the treatment that they normally get when other people are not there, and what they got, while we were there. They said that this was good treatment. So, that says a lot in itself. So, yeah, that went down today. So, I just wanted to give you guys an update on that the judge ruled in favor to restrict the ways that they approach protesters, and to not. I think that's a great thing to acknowledge. It does not need to be in the police discretion whether or not someone is lawful or unlawful. That should be a part of a law. There should be specific rules and laws, and I'm sure they're in place to say, okay, this is unlawful, not to the police's discretion. You know who else? What other law does that? It's the stand your ground law. Stand your ground leaves it up to the person's discretion on whether they're in immediate danger or not. And their own discretion, they can take someone's life. Because if you perceive that you're in immediate danger, you can go ahead and shoot someone. That's the stand your ground law, which we all became familiar with during the Trayvon Martin case. So putting the discretion under the police's authority is absurd, and I think it has potential for error, because this is the reason why mass incarceration happened. You pull someone over, and this to their discretion. If I get put off, this is a great reason why I think marijuana needs to be decriminalized, because you think about their discretion. If I have 2 strains of marijuana, right, and they put me over and they find 2 different bags of marijuana, guess what that is? What is it? It's what you have intent to sell. I can't think of the term right now, but it's possession of narcotics with intent to sell. That's what it is. You have intent to sell because you have it in 2 bags, and that's to the discretion of the police officer. Not saying that I just went to a dispensary and bought 2 different strains and they're in different bags, but because they're bagged up, it's called you have intent to sell because they're separated. So when you start to put things in the discretion of the police officers, police are humans. They don't have proper training. Some of them have mental issues. Some of them have emotional and insecurities. And you leave it to their discretion. In the moment, they can do something that can mess up someone's life. So I think this is a great thing. I just wanted to give y'all this update. This came down today in St. Louis. So like I said earlier, I will be in Puerto Rico for the next 5 days with no Mickey. We'll try to go live there. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to go live or not, just due to I don't think they have cell service. I know that 50% of the electricity is still out, and I think with those contractors, another 25 is out. So we'll see there. But if not, I'll be posting it every day, because I'm sure where we're going to stay at, we'll have electricity and the internet. So you will see the videos. If not live, definitely each day as we document the devastation going on in Puerto Rico. So I'll see you guys in a minute. I'm up out of here. Peace. Hey.